Let's look at the Maps application in the Nokia C7. Maps is either located here on the first screen or on the menu and Maps. And the first thing that you'll notice is that it's a very large application. It's so large that it needs its own menu, as you can see here. And I will only be focusing on 3 of the functionalities in this application simply because it's too large for a normal review. I'll focus on what I can do in my position, what I can do when I'm driving, and what I can do when I'm walking. So the first thing that you'll notice is that this application is not consistent with the rest of the Nokia interface. As you might have seen in some of the other videos, this Nokia phone has a lot of back buttons over here, no buttons, cancel buttons, whatever, something with some kind of a negative action, and over here options. And then if you want to do something with an item, you simply press it. But here you'll have close over here, which is kind of consistent with the negative thing. You'll have settings over here, which is something else than the normal options. And you'll have something in the middle here, which is the help or the support for this. You'll also notice, based on this single screen here, that there is no back buttons as I would normally expect, but there's a menu button. So the menu takes me back to this main menu, and it's consistent across the application that menu takes me back to the menu, but it's not consistent with the rest of the phone, and therefore it's slightly confusing. And it takes a few unnecessary seconds to learn this. Now let's see what I can do in my position. In my position I have a map that shows me where I am, a red dot that shows me my exact position in this map over a part of Copenhagen in Denmark. And I have menu over here, which takes me back to the menu. I have search over here, which displays a bunch of streets that I already searched for, and the options for doing more searches. Also I have categories of places that I would like to visit if I'm searching for an accommodation or similar. So if I'm in here, you'll see the normal Nokia functionality of having close over here, which takes me back to the map, or menu, which takes me to the menu. Again, this is not consistent with the rest of the phone, but at least it's consistent in the application itself. So if I move the map here, I can see a cursor in the middle of the screen that tells me the address that the cursor is located on. Let's see, I wish to go. Let's say I wish to go here. The cursor will then show me that this is the name of the road. So if I select it, I get all these options. When I look at the screen, my initial thought is, damn, there's a lot of options. I can save, I can share this position, I can navigate, and there's a bunch of places here, such as cafes, bars, nightclubs and similar, which could be of my interest. And the problem, of course, for me as the user is to figure out how to use all this. So I have all these options right here. The obvious choice for me is to navigate to a place. So I'll press navigate. And then these options are displayed. I can walk, drive, or I can put it as a part of a route. Let's say I wish to walk there. I will then have this overview of the complete route. I can zoom the interface and see and drag the interface and see which turns I should take, which roads I should follow. If I'm not satisfied with the screen size here, I can zoom in, zoom out by these buttons or by pinching, such as this. And it's all very fine. If I wish to change the view, I can go into map mode here under options and take, let's say, 3D. So it's fairly easy to figure out what I should do if I wish to walk somewhere. As you can see, I'm waiting for the GPS here. I'm not going to take this phone outside with my camera mounted on it. It's too cold, it's February and it's Denmark and it's freezing outside. But here I can see where I could walk. And I'm pretty sure that if I walked along this route, I'll see my position along the blue line. So it's not difficult to figure out what I should do if I wish to walk somewhere. But the problem for me in this application is that I simply get too many options when I'm using it. Let me just stop the navigation here. So I'm here at my position. I wish to walk to this intersection. And I get all these options. Now, it's difficult to design an application of this size with these many options because as a designer, you're not quite sure what the user wants to do. He might want to navigate, he might want to save, he might want to share. But when this screen is displayed, it seems like the designer has selected to give me a little bit of everything instead of designing for me what the primary use case could be. And the primary use case would often be to navigate to a place. It's not very often that I find an address and then want to learn what's around this address. Of course it makes sense. It's very practical for me if I'm in another country. I can just put in the address and I can find cafes, supermarkets, whatever around it. But I'm not sure if this is the primary use case. The primary use case for me, and I think for many users, would be to navigate somewhere. So the majority of the screen is filled up with places that could be of interest to me, but most of the time they're not. I just wish to navigate. So when I select something here on my map, I'd expect some kind of functionality that primarily helps me to navigate to the place, and not all this stuff that could be interesting, but often will not be. But for the designer, the problem is that he doesn't know what the user wants to do. So I'd say there are too many options here. There's too much here that is not interesting for me, and I haven't had the options for selecting anything here. It's just everything. So it's easy to go somewhere with this application once you muddle your way through all the extra screens and all the functionality that you don't need, or that is not your primary use case, as far as I know. I do hope that Nokia has done some user studies in order to figure out what the user wants if he is on my position and selects something else. Maybe I'm not the average user for a Nokia user study. So here's another interesting thing with this application. So in the middle here, you'll have an icon, which normally means something along the lines of setting. If I take settings here, I'll get the options for different map views, and I get the options for different things I can do with each view. There's a few problems in this screen. First of all, it's fancy, it's a nice layout, but it's not consistent with anything in the rest of the phone. The text is very small, the contrast is very low. It's just not perfect in any way compared to the big letters and big lists that you normally see in a Nokia phone. Also, if I select night mode here, I'm thrown into night mode straight away. But if I want to change two things, I can only change one thing at a time. Well, it's not a disaster that I cannot change more than one thing, but as a user, I don't really feel that I'm in control of the interface when I press something and it immediately changes. Maybe I'm old-fashioned and conservative, but I'd like a big save button or similar.